see what the possible responses to that would be. Like if I was like, how is everyone? And you put like the surprised face. Like what would that, like, what would that mean? What would that even be? Oh, you can put them all. Oh, nice. See, so you could do anything. You don't have to do the thumbs up thing. I think I just updated it and it created the opportunity to now use any emoji as a reaction. That's fun. Good job, Sean. I think I'm gonna put, let's see here. Oh man. All right, let's see. Yeah, I am feeling pizza today. Yeah, okay. Well, welcome. Thanks everybody for being here. We're recording it, I guess, so that folks that might miss it can watch it later. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and we'll start talking about like really, really fun stuff. We're gonna start talking about writing. This is Lisa Simpson, for those of you who only watch Rick and Morty now and don't know where it came from. It came from here, it came from The Simpsons. Everything good in life sort of traveled through The Simpsons. Fun fact, the creator of The Simpsons, Matt Groening, went to my high school in Portland, Oregon. Also fun fact, Mel Blanc, the guy that voiced Bugs Bunny and all of the Looney Tunes cartoons, also went to my high school in Portland, Oregon. Isn't that weird? Okay, anyways, writing is not the worst thing ever. One of the things I want to just, I'll make it abundantly clear. You will never be able to avoid writing in your life. You may be able to avoid math. You may be able to avoid foreign language and many of the other subjects that you study in school. You just will never be able to avoid writing. So it is super important to continue to work on this craft as much as you can, okay? So in college admissions though, the stuff we're talking about here today, there are really three main types of admissions writing that everybody has to contend with. So there's the standard college essay, right? Referred to sort of formally as the personal statement. This is the common application personal statement, okay? We'll get into that. We'll get into all this stuff. There's supplemental essays. There's other stuff that the individual colleges that you're applying to are going to ask you to complete. There is also the common application activities list. It's a list. You would think you would just list things, but there is actually some sort of writing technique involved here, okay? There's actually maybe even a fourth kind, which is just generally speaking called additional information, okay? And I will, I'll try to remember to come back to that and talk about it. So first off, let's talk about the personal statement. So this is the one that I think creates the most sort of anguish with everyone. It is totally wide open, write about whatever you want, as long as it's 650 words in length. That's it, right? Like those are the rules. And so because there's so little direction, you know, it can feel sort of overwhelming. I have no idea what to write about. So I want to help you think about how to approach this. There's no correct way to approach this. There's no perfect way. You know, you can kind of, there's so many different thoughts and theories out there about how to make this work. But I think that, you know, as long as you kind of hit on some of these tips that I'm going to give you today, you're probably going to have a successful essay. Okay. So it's 650 words. The prompts are available on the common application. There's a new one this year for the first time in a long time. But generally speaking, you can go and you can look at the essay prompts if you want to kind of get inspired and write something to the prompt, or you can take a different approach and you can write something that whatever it is that you want to write, because it's a good story, it's important to tell it. And generally speaking, you can back your statement up into one of the essay prompts. So you can go prompt first or prompt later. It doesn't really matter. The new one, reflect on something that someone has done for you that has made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? So they added this because I think that the members of the common application, that is to say the colleges that take it, I think we're getting kind of a lot of really hard essays, especially after last year and last summer, right? And I think they wanted to really encourage students to consider the fact that you don't need to write about tragedy or bad things or anything like that. You are totally licensed to write in, about something positive that happened to you. And so they wanted to just really shove that into the onto your radar screens by actually putting a whole new essay prompt here to hopefully generate some positive responses. The essay is a voicing of character, okay? All of your achievements, all of the things that you are as a person are contained in the Common Application somewhere, right? Your activities, your grades, like all of the choices that you made, who your parents are and where they went to college, if they went to college, what they do for work, whether you have siblings, like all the stuff about your life is there, except you, except your character, except your personality, right? They can try to kind of divine what your personality is by looking at all of that stuff, but this is a chance for you to give a voice to your character, to your personality, okay? So in many cases, you might have the opportunity to do a college interview, right? We talked about that last week, but most cases you probably won't. And even if you do a college interview, you're only going to talk to one person, and that person may or may not actually even read your application, right? So this is the opportunity to make sure that your voice and your character are represented in the application, no matter who reads it, okay? It almost certainly will not be the difference maker, okay? So I can say this as somebody that read 10,000 of these things as a college admissions counselor. It very rarely tipped the scales, okay, between admit or deny, or admit or not admit. In my experience, the worst sort of reception that an essay can get, or the worst the sort of impact it can make on your application is neutral. So you really aren't gonna, it's not gonna usually have a bad effect on your application. It generally is going to be beneficial to your application, and certainly if you follow my tips here today. Here's another thing that is like really crazy to think about. Admissions counselors will individually spend maybe 3 to 5 minutes on your essay, and it'll be one of 25 or 100 that they read that day. Seriously. I say this because, again, yesterday I talked about applying early action, or the other day I talked about applying early action, appealing to the human aspect of the process, right? Again, these are human beings that read these. They're going to scan it super quick. They're very skilled at reading these and getting what they need out of it. So I don't know that I would view this as any kind of injustice. Like, this is just what they have to do if they've got 40,000 applications in a year that they got to get through. But knowing this will help you craft a better essay, because they are reading applications at a speedy pace. They're reading them as fast as they can so that they can get through them quickly while also making the best decisions possible and gleaning the most information from it. So you want to make all of your writing very easy to access, right? You want them to get all of the information that you want them to get when they read it one time, right? You don't want them to have to get, it's so literary and complicated or so creatively out there that they just cannot make heads or tails of what's going on, or they have to go back and read over that whole paragraph because they just didn't quite get, you don't want them to do that. You want them to just read through, have it flow, and have them get it, right? And I want to talk a little bit more about how to write in that way. Who is your audience? So this is a really kind of a challenging question, when you talk about writing the personal statement. Who is this for? Because you are not going to know who these nameless, faceless admissions officers are at each of the schools that you're applying to, right? So who should you write to if you have no idea who they are? I will say that the first and most important person that needs to be happy with this, that needs to really enjoy and like the essay that they write is you, okay? You have to feel like this essay is as accurate a representation of who you are and the goal that you had for that essay as possible. After that, it doesn't really matter. That said, it is still really important to get the feedback of trusted adults, because these are adults who are going to read it. Also, it's good to get the feedback from your friends. If you want to give it to a couple of friends to read, you want them to be like, yeah, this sounds like you, right? That they see you in it. So as far as your audience is concerned, maybe write to your favorite teacher at school. Have them in mind as you write this and see if they think that they would like it. Your parents are usually not going to be a great audience, right? And I'll talk more about parents and the essay writing in a minute, but the parents really, they want to read these. If you want to share these with your parents, it's good, but I think that you should get to that point where you like it, okay? Or you've given it to some friends or trusted adult or somebody else before you give it to your parents, okay? Because sometimes, a lot of the time, parents really want to mess with it. They want to change it. They want to be like, oh, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? A lot of parents already have an idea in their head of what your perfect essay would be, right? And it's probably made very different from the one that you're thinking about. So parents tend to be best if they're kind of at the end of this process, I think. So where to start? This is it. Determine your core values and craft an essay around those, okay? What do you want your reader to know about you, to, at your core, right? That if you do not know these things about me, then you do not know me, okay? So think about the things that really, really matter to you and craft an essay around those. So for instance, right, if you look at this and you think to yourself, pick 3 of these things, and put them at the top of your essay draft. And then if at any point you wonder if your essay is going the way that you want it to go, check these words and see if your essay is working in service to these words, if that you're actually, that these notions of your having valued success and adaptability and uniqueness, if that's all coming through. But this is really, I think, important. It's a good thing to just kind of meditate on generally as far as you're concerned. At this stage in your life, who are you? Like, what do you value? And then we want to show some evidence about that, right? So if you determine what your core values are, it's easy to say, I value something, but it's a lot more impactful to show us, right, in your life, how you value it. So what's the evidence that those are your core values? And then how are you going to explain the evidence? This is basically it, okay? So for instance, let's do, this is me, okay? I sat down and I said to myself, I value adaptability, growth, and originality. These are the 3 things that me, Davin Sweeny, would pick of that list, okay? So if that's the case, I'm then going to go and think about some stories from my life that highlight the fact that these things do in fact matter to me. So I moved around to a lot of different places and I got involved. So I went from Portland to Los Angeles to Rochester, New York. And by the time I got to Rochester, New York, I decided, I'm gonna really be engaged in this community. So I started doing some political volunteer work. I worked on some campaigns and stuff like that. So I adapted to my new environment, right? I got married. That's sort of a growth thing, right? That happens. So let's just, there's more, but let me just stick with those 2, right? So now you want to sort of flesh out the stories and establish a narrative structure. So I'm thinking about my whole life. Like I moved to Rochester, that's where I met my wife, right? So the adaptability maybe had something to do with it. I met my wife in Rochester, which is a new place I went to, just kind of on a leap of faith. A friend of mine offered me a job, so it sounds cool. My originality won her over, but I was prepared with adaptability, and still growth is always needed in a relationship, okay? So if I want to write a narrative about my life, highlighting these values, I now have like a little story right there. And so with that, just that little statement there, you know, I can start to kind of build an essay out of that. This is sort of the visual representation of what I'm talking about. So right at the center, you want your values to be in place. And then you want to think about the stories that highlight and buttress those values. And then the words come, right? So just start with a basic thing like this, right? Just some real basic, like, okay, moved to a few places and got involved, you know, a little statement here, sort of basic general structure of how you might want the essay to go. But then the words come, right? Then you have to sit down and actually kind of type it out and get it close to the 650 word limit. There's more on this in just a moment. Your first draft is going to suck. That is okay. That is the point. Okay. Nobody ever nails anything right out of the gate. It always takes improvement. So after you write your first draft, you write the words that kind of highlight the stories. Then you can add some details. You can mess with the structure. So for instance, I feel like, you know, the opening sentence and the closing sentence are in many cases the very last thing to happen to your essay. I think that you should write and write and write and write. When you sit down to do your first draft, you should not edit yourself. You should write more than 650 words. You should not be trying to hit the word limit until the very, very end. In many cases, if it's not the first or last sentence, that's the very last thing to happen. And that is cutting words down to get just to 650. So don't worry about the word limit right off the bat. Think about what you value. Think about some stories that highlight the fact that you value that stuff. Write the stories out using your best writing, and then mess around with the details and the structure of it. Okay. So I mentioned The Simpsons earlier. This is an interview that I read in the New Yorker with a Simpsons writer that I thought was really, really helpful. It's exactly kind of what I like to think about when we think about writing. So his name is John Swartzwelder. He sort of wrote a lot of iconic early Simpsons episodes. But anyways, the interviewer says, how much time and attention do you spend on these scripts? Another Simpsons writer once compared your scripts to finely tuned machines. If the wrong person mucked with them, the whole thing could blow up. All of my time and all of my attention. It's the only way I know how to write, darn it. But I do have a trick that makes things easier for me. Since writing is very hard and rewriting is comparatively easy and rather fun, I always write my scripts all the way through as fast as I can, the first day, if possible, putting in crap jokes and pattern dialogue. Homer, I don't want you to do that. Then I won't do it. And then the next day when I get up, the script's been written. It's lousy, but it's a script. The hard part is done. It's like a crappy little elf has snuck into my office and badly done all my work for me and then left with a tip of his crappy hat. All I have to do from that point on is fix it. So I've taken a very hard job writing and turned it into an easy one, rewriting overnight. I advise all writers to do their scripts and other writing this way, and be sure to send me a small royalty every time you do it. That's interesting. So create an imperfect world and then improve it. That's the way I do it. So that's what you should do. I advise all of my students, after they really kind of think that they've got an idea of what it is that they want to write, that they just sit down, just block out an hour and just go for it and just try to write your story as best you can in one sitting. It will suck. That is okay. It is a first draft, but then you go back, you rewrite, you improve. The ideas are on the page, right? The words are on the page. In many cases, your subconscious brain is the one that does the work for you, right? As long as you sort of sit down and you dedicate the time to just sort of type. We've all surprised ourselves with what comes out and goes onto the page. So give yourself that time to just sort of sit down and write. And then you can go back and you can work on it. 4 keys to a successful essay. Actually, let me pause and see, are there any questions at this point? Anything about what I said, or that anybody wants to have a question about or a thought? No? All right. So let's see, I'll go back and I'll share my screen. Okay. So there are 4 keys to a successful essay. Okay. You don't really have to do anything else except you do have to do these things and some of the other stuff that I said before. Okay. You're not trying to impress anybody. Okay. You're not trying to impress anybody with your amazing command of the English language, with your literary structuring abilities. You're not trying to impress them by telling the most impressive story that you can think of. The trick is that it the fact is that it almost always seems like you're trying too hard. You know, you do not need to try to impress anybody with this. All of the other stuff in your application is plenty impressive. Your grades, your activities, all of your achievements, all the other stuff, that is where they are meant to be impressed. Okay. Here, they'll be impressed if you're genuine, if you're authentic, if you're you. Okay. You don't want to repeat other stuff already in the application. You don't want to write about, you know, extracurricular activities or other things that might otherwise be available for them to learn about. You are a complex human being with a lot to you. You are more than just whatever else might be in your application. So let that sit on its own and use this space to communicate different parts about who you are to them. Embrace your own voice, okay? As I said before, this is a voicing of character, and the admissions readers are reading your essay in about 5 minutes. So in many ways, it might be better for you to write this more like how you talk than how you write. Okay, so if you're funny, go ahead and be funny. If you're not funny, you do not have to try to be. Okay, if you would actually use a word like verily, then you can. But if you would not use very complex, weird, obscure words, you don't have to. Just be you, right? You can write a lot more like how you talk. Own your story with details, details, details. Details are super important, okay? They highlight the fact that you're the only one that could be telling this story because you were there, because you've shared with us some details from the events that you're sharing. So let me give you some more information about details. So details you want to show, don't tell. Okay. I am a very gregarious person. That's me telling you that I am a very gregarious person. I would rather probably show you with some example from my life of how I was gregarious. Okay, I just made that up. I don't know. Maybe I'm gregarious. It seems like a weird thing to self-apply. But anyways, you're trying to show these things, not just tell them and take my word for it. These are not the kind of details that I think you want per se, because they chew up a lot of the word space too. Stuff like this. It was third block IB English class and the air weighed heavily with the oppressive May heat. It's just like, okay, it might be a bit much. Depends on what you're trying to sell. The air was thick and cool, and the lights, a dusty yellow, descended in brightness from the front of the altar to the back of the chapel. Way too literary, right? I don't think we need all of that. The air is a pair of warm, damp hands constricting my neck. These are all on the same theme of air. Everybody wants to write about the air. I don't know why. This also reminds me of one of my favorite Mitch Hedberg jokes. And if you don't know who Mitch Hedberg is, you should go and do some YouTubes of Mitch Hedberg. But he says that he doesn't like turtlenecks because it feels like a really weak guy is trying to strangle you. And if you're wearing a backpack, it's like a really weak person is trying to bring you down for a backpack and a neck. Anyways, I blew it. A salty breeze and the scent of sunscreen filled the air as we returned to the hotel room. It's just a bit much. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about what I mean. Let's do this. Can somebody read? Some student unmute and read this? Just go for it.
I can go.
Yeah.
So just read the whole thing.
Just read it.
I I've always been someone who went after what they wanted. My parents told me stories about things that I'd do to fight for causes at an early age. My kindergarten teacher even called me Little Nancy Pelosi. As I got older, I channeled this persistence and curiosity and took an interest in politics, becoming very engaged in many political campaigns, including one for Maxine Walters, Kamala Harris, and Hillary Clinton. I felt proud to support women in politics using their voice to fight for important causes.
Thank you very much, Madeline. How do you feel about that passage personally?
I thought it was really engaging.
Yeah.
It really kind of like, it was really interesting how they brought like women as an example, and it was like they kind of modeled after these women and were inspired by them, and then showed how.
Right. You get a pretty good sense of who this person is, right?
Yes, exactly.
Based on some of this stuff. But so when I read this, the kinds of questions that I go after as an editor. So she writes in this second sentence, my parents told me stories about things I do to fight for causes at an early age. I'm like, man, so tell us some of those stories. I want to hear what those are. What are the stories of you fighting for causes at an early age? My kindergarten teacher even called me Little Nancy Pelosi. Why? What did you do in kindergarten? So you can add even more detail to this, right? So here's what she then went on and did. Madeline, why don't you read it again?
I have always been fiercely determined.
Okay, so check this. I'm going to cut you off. So check this out. We're also going to have to, eventually hit the word limit, right? So I have always been fiercely determined says the same thing as I have always been someone who went after what they wanted. That is very many words. That is very choppy, and that is right. But I'm always fiercely determined, and they get the same idea, fewer words, right? Okay, proceed.
When I was only one, my parents had to put a mesh netting over my crib because I would jump and scream, refusing to go to sleep. In kindergarten, my teacher, Miss Jackie, named me Little Nancy Pelosi because I would always question why we went to recess at 9:30 and not 10 o'clock like the big kids, or why we had 20-minute naps after lunch. As I got older, I channeled this persistence and curiosity and took an interest in politics. I donated babysitting money to Maxine Walters, made phone calls for Kamala Harris, and convinced my dad to canvass with me for Hillary Clinton. As someone who was always told to quiet down and stop asking so many questions, I was inspired to support successful women who did the opposite.
So much better, isn't it? I mean, don't you? So now instead of like I helped these politicians, I donated babysitting money to Maxine Waters. That's like, man, that's how serious she was about this, right? She convinced her dad to canvass with her for Hillary Clinton. There's a little story in there, right? Just on its own, like of her convincing her dad and then dad going out and knocking on doors, right? So this is not like, she's not impressing us with language, right? With impressive words. She's just telling us about who she is and the things that she cares about and the extent to which she cares about them with evidence, right? With details. So this one is fine. This is totally fine, but it can always be better if you just dive in a little bit deeper and give us some more detail to kind of prove to us that, yeah, in fact, you do care about these things. Okay. So here's a couple more thoughts. Again, just take a more conversational tone. It's okay. You can be casual, right? Like this is not super formal. This is just normal, right? Contractions are okay. So you can say, let's see if she even has any in here. I don't know, maybe she did or didn't, I can't remember. But don't instead of do not is totally okay. Can't instead of cannot is totally okay. It also saves you some words, right? Because it's one instead of two. Quirky is okay. Quirks are what make you you. Go ahead and be quirky. Share with us, anything that is sort of super random or different that you think is an important detail in terms of knowing you. Be quirky. Let your freak flag fly. It's okay. Be as personal as possible without oversharing. So you want to bare your soul as much as you are comfortable doing, also within the, commensurate with social norms. You don't want to get too personal, right? There may be some things about your life that not everybody needs to know about. This can become very difficult for some students who may choose to write about a mental or emotional health issue that they went through, that maybe for between 10th and 11th grade, it's just nothing consumed their life quite like having to deal with something like that, and therefore it's maybe important to them to want to share that. This is where it's important for you to get the advice of a school counselor or a teacher to kind of hear more from them about how to approach that, if that's something that you think that you're interested in talking about. It can be a little difficult to do in a way that isn't going to come off maybe like oversharing, kind of depending on what it is. But I think that it's important to make sure that this is where you want to get the help of some adult that can read this over and help identify that line. It does have to have a narrative arc. Okay, it does have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So I was a certain kind of way, but I was confronted with a change, a challenge, a conflict, a realization, or something. And now as a result, I'm different. Or now as a result, I can say for sure I am this kind of way. Right. So this sort of, I'm probably going to butcher it, but the sort of standard kind of 3-act play or story structure is the introduction of characters, the introduction of some sort of challenge or change or conflict they have to deal with, and then the resolution of it. So that's basically what your structure wants to be like. Okay, let me introduce me, the character, or me and this other character that plays an important part in this story. And then I want to introduce you to the fact that something happened or something changed, or I realized something dawned on me as a result of something happening. And now I'm here, safely on the other side, or just talking to you now in my current state of being at my current age, and I'm reflecting back on that. And here's kind of what I've learned that I can share with you. Okay, but it does need to have a beginning, a middle, and end. Again, for ease of consumption, we are hardwired to want stories to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so you can be creative and take a bit of a risk in terms of what you choose to write about. That's okay. Risks are generally rewarded, right? Again, as long as you're not oversharing or taking risks that also omit any kind of a narrative structure. There's such a thing as an essay that can be way too abstract, and you don't want to do that. But it does have to have a narrative arc. Eventually, you're going to want to let this thing go. You're going to want to stop writing. This is one of the only things in all the essay writing and everything that you're going to have to do is the only thing that you can continue to tinker with and mess with until like 11:59 p.m. of the deadline evening. You don't want to do that. It's never going to be perfect. Once you get the thumbs up from a trusted adult or friends or whatever collection of support team that you come up with, then stop, put it away, and move on. This is the kind of thing that maybe you might want to handle first. If you haven't started to do college admission stuff yet, you got to do this. There's nothing really that's going to change between now and the end of the summer necessarily, unless you're expecting to have some sort of amazing experience that might influence what you choose to write about. But otherwise, you could just do it now and get it over with and get it done. You can put it on ice, and then when you come back to school in the fall, you can show it to some teachers, see what they say. but you don't want to continue to just hammer this out, okay? And then your parents should not be involved in writing this. Parent intervention, in my experience, almost always makes these worse. They can help you think about what to write about, right? They can often be really helpful in coming up with the stories that are evidence to support the fact that you care about that you value certain things. But once they start to get in there and actually type stuff and make edits and stuff, they would want you to write it the way that they would want to write it. And this is not meant to sound like how parents write. This is meant to sound like how you write. So yeah, if your parents are like 50 years old, they've been doing a lot more writing than you, and they would write a different essay. So this is not for them to provide that kind of feedback. If you want them to read it and provide feedback, I highly recommend printing it out. Do not share the document with them, because then they start to tap little comments in the Google Doc that become very easy for you to just accept and move on. And then before you know it, it is no longer your essay. It is tainted with the parental words. So if you can print it out, give them a pencil and say, your feedback is welcome this way, then that preserves the kind of integrity of your work. You can take their comments into account or not. This is your process. This is your essay. Your parents are going to want to read it, but they shouldn't be involved in creating it. Okay. Any questions about that before we move on to supplemental essays? Do we have the same amount of time as last time, David, if we go past?
We do. Yep.
Okay,
we have some flexibility.
Okay, great. So I spent a lot of time on that one, it looks like. Okay, so supplemental essays. These are as important, if not more so, than the personal statement. You're going to see the colleges are going to list these as optional. But if they are listed that way as optional, an optional additional essay, for you, they're required. You do not want to be the person that didn't take them up on the option to do this. Okay. Colleges really want to know that you are paying attention to them, their process, that you are engaged. And so you don't want to spend all of your time on your personal statement and very little time on these. These are super important. Okay. So they are available on the Common Application as of August 1st, but you can begin to organize them now. So again, what I think I mentioned the other day, the Common Application opens every year for the current senior class on August 1st. As of that date, updated information for every school that's on the Common Application ought to be there. But if you just Google the name of the school and supplemental essays, you can start to confirm whether they have released their essay prompts for the 21-22 academic year, or if they have just confirmed that they're the same as last year, right? But you want to begin to organize them and just kind of see what it is that you need to write, okay? So in many cases, you may not be able to even identify the supplemental essay until you fill out their supplemental application. So what I mean is, if you're applying as an engineer, you may very well have to write an essay specific to applicants to the School of Engineering. So you might get to the application and it says there's no supplemental essay writing here. Oh, that's cool. And then the time comes to kind of put the dots on the I's and cross the T's on the application just before you get ready to submit it. And so you're filling out the actual supplemental application. And then all of a sudden, boom, there's an essay that you did not know that you had to write, 350 words. You don't want to be caught off guard. So as you organize your supplemental essays, you want to make sure that if you're applying to any kind of specific major or program, that you know for a fact that there is or is not writing associated with that, because you don't want to get caught off guard. These can really add up. So in many cases, I think, the other day somebody was asking kind of like, well, how many colleges should you apply to? Or we were talking something like that. you can have 12 schools on your list, and the configuration of those 12 schools will dramatically change the volume of writing that you have to do. Some of the schools that are most coveted, that everybody in the world would just die and go to heaven if they got into, they want to make it hard to apply, right? They want the people who are in their applicant pool to be students who are serious about it. And so places like Stanford and Yale and USC, they have like, in Columbia, they have like, you know, anywhere from 6 to 12 different supplemental essays to write. So it's important as you start to develop your list to understand how much work you're talking about, you know, and how committed you are to actually doing the work. Because at the end of the day, they can really, really add up. So your job in writing these supplemental essays is to demonstrate your understanding of the school and specifically your fit with the school. So you want to take good notes as you're researching your college list to understand specifically why a school is right for you, right? So you remember I asked, I gave you that document last week that you could use to organize your college list, and there are some columns in there saying, you know, detail some specific things here that you like about this school, because you do need to communicate back to them that you get it, that you understand this school and you understand the fit between you and this school. Okay, so this isn't demonstrated interest. This is demonstrating your understanding, okay? As far as these essays go, there are a lot of thematic similarities from school to school. So you can kind of group them by a common topic and sort of repurpose different parts of certain supplemental essays for one school at another school. But you really do not want to just copy and paste your answers. It happened all the time that I would be reading at the University of Rochester, the supplemental essay prompt that answers the question, and the student says, and that's why I cannot wait to go to Cornell University. Right? And you just go, oh, that's almost an instant deny. I mean, that is just, that's so painful. It's like, it's so easy. And yet you were so lazy to just copy and paste it right in, right? So you want to be very careful about that. So here are some common themes. Why do you want to go here? Tell us about why you want to go here. And they're going to couch it in this like really annoying way. Like, I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. University of Miami supplemental essay prompts. See how easy it was for me to find this? So here's Miami, but then there's also these third-party websites like CollegeVine, collegeessayadvisors.com, that kind of stuff. Those websites are totally fine. You know, you just want to verify that that's actually what the essay prompt is, okay? So look at this. The University of Miami's official mascot is the ibis. Folklore maintains that the native marsh bird is the last to take shelter before a hurricane hits and the first to emerge once the storm passes, making it an apt symbol of courage and resilience. Considering your ability to control your own motivation and behavior, how have past experiences helped build your courage and resilience to persist in the face of academic life and challenges so that once these storms pass, you can emerge in a continued pursuit of your goal? I mean, like, how do you even deconstruct that, right? Do you have to now write about a freaking ibis? Like, what? But this is the key word, okay, right? Like, they want you to write about them. They do. Even though they obscure it in all of this, like, which also, my God, like, why do they do this to their poor admissions readers? Like, they don't want to read responses to all of these. You know what my favorite is? The University of Georgia. They have an essay that's an essay prompt that says, tell us the funniest thing that happened to you in high school. I mean, I would love to just read all of those. These, not so much. So, you know, this is a very long and winding way of basically you kind of saying, you have to answer the question. You have to reference past experiences that have built your courage and resilience, okay, in the face of academic life and challenges. But they also want you to talk about Miami. It's sort of hidden in here. But trust me, right? They don't want you to just write some response that has nothing to do with them. You do want to find a way to talk about, in continued pursuit of your goals. Well, isn't one of your goals to get admitted to Miami, right? So maybe you want to reference something about Miami in that response. So these can get really kind of annoyingly tricky and arcane at times. So why do you want to go here? In general, the answer to this is, here are the things that I know that I want in college. Through doing careful research, here are the ways or the things that I have identified about your college that meets what I want. Therefore, I want to go here. That is a successful response. If you write one paragraph that just says, here are the things I want out of a college experience, you can reuse that in every single one of these. The then variable paragraph has to be the specific examples that you can provide as to what they have about that communicates the fit and your understanding of that school. Expand on an extracurricular activity. This is easy, right? This is a no-brainer. You guys all have things you do outside of school that you wish you could talk about more. Why do you want to study what you want to study? These are common ones, okay? Then there are a couple that I'm going to give specific examples, but that are common themes. Everyone belongs to many different communities and or groups defined by, among other things, shared geography, religion, ethnicity, income, cuisine, interest, race, ideology, or intellectual heritage. Choose one of the communities to which you belong and describe that community and your place within it. This is the University of Michigan. They want students to come into their community and participate in it and be a part of it. Community is a very common theme. So they are aiming to understand, to the extent that they can, to the extent you can share with them, what's your role in their community going to be like, vis-a-vis how you can describe your role in a current community, right? Describe an experience with discrimination, whether it was fighting against discrimination or reorganizing your contribution to discriminating against a person or a group. What did you learn from the experience? In what ways will you bring those lessons to the University of Oregon? This is the University of Oregon. You're going to see more and more essay prompts that are going to be getting at the issues of bias, of racism, of discrimination, of racial diversity, of social equity, social justice. These are emerging as more and more of a theme. You should really contemplate this stuff before you dive into some of these essays, because they're very interested in learning about it. Like Tufts University, for instance, has a really cool one that's something like, where are you on your journey to influencing social change or social justice? So there's more and more places are asking questions like this. And so it's important to contemplate this and to have a response. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily be going out and protesting or doing anything like that. In many cases, it could be, I go to this really boring suburban high school where everybody is exactly the same, and I cannot wait to get out of here so that I can get into a community like yours and begin to affect this stuff, because around here, nothing's changing, nothing's happening, right? Any questions about essay supplements? Okay, cool. The common application activities list. You have 10 150 character descriptions listed in order of preference to you. 10. For some students, that's like, where am I going to come up with 10? For some students, it's how am I going to cut it down to 10? You don't need to have 10. You don't need to stretch into 10. You don't need to add like walking my dog just to have one more thing. You don't need to do that. But again, you can be creative in terms of what your activities are. They don't just need to be clubs or sports or things at school. It can be anything that you do outside the classroom. You only have 150 characters to describe them, and they need to go in order of their preference to use. So the most important activity goes right at the top, because again, they're reading these applications for speed. And so they want to know right away, what's the most important thing this kid wants me to know about what they do outside the classroom? And that goes right at the top. You want to describe not just the activity, but how you engaged with the activity, okay? So this is why this is on here as a writing activity, because it is not just a resume space for you to add just the facts. Here's what I did. Here's how long I did it for. MUN is a club where we represented countries and debate global affairs. Members since 10th grade. That's 94 characters, just the facts. Something like Model United Nations, everybody knows what that is. You do not need to describe what MUN is. This is a totally wasted space, okay? Furthermore, you have some opportunities in the common application. You're asked to click little boxes with how many years of high school you participated in it. So you don't need to write member since 10th grade, because you're going to check a little box that says 10th, 11th, 12th, right? So here's a better way to write it. Co-led the proud nation of Djibouti in supporting resolutions on global food security each year at the Pennsylvania State Conference. 122 characters. You're still under 150. So you have to write like the most impactful kind of tweet, half a tweet that you can about this activity, right? I mean, I was in MUN. I was the ambassador to Djibouti. Thank you very much. The capital is Ouagadougou, which you all knew. But I was super, super into it. I was a giant MUN dork. I thought it was fantastic. How the hell am I supposed to talk about it in 150 characters? You just do the best you can, right? But you want some of your energy and enthusiasm for the activity to come through as much as you can, right? There is this fourth section called additional information. This is in there still, I believe, but last year they added this. And this is what it says. Community disruptions such as COVID-19 and natural disasters can have deep and long-lasting impacts. If you need it, this space is yours to describe those impacts. Colleges care about the effects on your health and well-being, safety, family circumstances, future plans, and education, including access to reliable technology and quiet study spaces. Do you wish to share anything about this? Yes, please use the space to describe how these events have impacted you. So absolutely everybody was impacted by COVID-19. Okay, some people were impacted far more than others. And disruptions are important for colleges to understand, so that if in 9th and 10th grade, your grades looked wonderful, but then 11th grade, your grades all went to shit because you just, couldn't, something happened in your life. Maybe you live, as so many students do here in my borough, the Bronx, in a very small apartment with a lot of family members, and it was very, very difficult for you to do online learning in those under those circumstances. This is not the space to say COVID-19 was so bad, but I took the time to start a podcast. Or this is not a place for you to kind of brag and just talk about what did you do during lockdown, if you were locked down. This is a space to say, my life was severely impacted in this very specific way that's important for you to know about, okay? But I gather that this is also going to be warehoused in the section of the application called additional information. So there is a 650 word space for you to talk about anything else that you want. It is not a place to put the other draft of the personal statement that you couldn't decide which one you wanted to submit, so you're going to just submit two and put this one in the additional information. This is along the same lines. This is one to provide some additional context that might be important for the admissions readers to know about. Okay. Questions? You guys want to mull over some values? Any questions I can answer for you? if you happen to meet any admissions counselors, you can ask them, hey, what are you looking for in a response to your essay prompt, right? Did we go over how to find your, I think we did last time, right? Like how to identify who your counselor is. One of the sort of like dumbest answers to a good question that nobody asked. The good question, you know, how do you answer these questions? The dumb answer is answer the question. I can't tell you how many times that has been the advice that helped get the student over a hump. Is you just read the question. It's very easy to get lost in your idea about how to answer the question, such that you kind of maybe lose the thread on what the actual thing is that they're asking. So if you feel done or you feel stuck one way or another, you just want to make sure that you're answering the question. Okay. One of the other things that I think is important to mention, if you've had the chance to visit the campus, you don't necessarily need to mention that in the response. And you certainly don't need to mention how beautiful it is. They know. They work there. They spend millions and millions of dollars on making it beautiful, right? They know that they're beautiful. It's the easiest, most basic thing that anybody can recognize about a college. So don't waste precious word space talking about how pretty the campus is, okay? You got to go deeper. You got to go deeper than that in demonstrating your understanding of the school. If the college doesn't have a supplemental essay, how do they know you're the right fit? That is a really good question. What do you think? What do you think, Madeline?
Would it be just off of the personal statement then, and like the extracurriculars?
It could, yeah. It could be that you're applying to a major that is unique and interesting there. And, you know, this is an act of social engineering, right? There's kind of a cliche, but it's very valuable in college admissions circles, which is to say that they're not looking for well-rounded students, they're looking for a well-rounded class. So you don't have to be everything. You don't have to play an instrument, speak a foreign language, volunteer and do community service, play a sport, blah. You don't have to be all of those things. You just have to be the person that you are and like the things that you like demonstrably, and, you know, kind of hope that there's a spot in there for you, right? All you can do is all you can do. But you want to make sure that if they, let's say, don't have any supplemental essay writing, but they offer the opportunity to do an admissions interview, that you take them up on that. But maybe they just take a very, very basic, you know, kind of approach to it, which is, we know because you've got the right grades and the right scores, right? It could be any number of things. So it's important for you to focus on the things that you know you have control over, because there's a whole lot that you don't, right? You don't know necessarily if they're going to consider you a good fit for the school. As my grandmother says, all you can do is all you can do. Just put your best foot forward, you know, and feel really comfortable about the self that you are sharing with them in this process. And if you feel good about that, then, you know, if they don't take you, it's totally their loss, right? What else? Let's see. If it is true that you don't have to be a completely diverse, well-rounded person, then why is so much emphasis placed on being that? I think that is a really wonderful question. And I think that it is one of the great hypocrisies that adults have levied on you. Think about your parents. How many of them do all those things? How many, like some of you definitely have some like well-rounded parents. Most of them are not, you know, but we have forced this idea upon you because as far as we're concerned, I think, well, we want you to kind of try everything, right? We want you to try playing the piano, you know, and stick with it. Try martial arts, try sports, try it out. Some parents are a little bit more different, which is to say, like, try it and stick with it and do not quit, right? And in many ways, that's sort of like the what is it, the 17-year cicada approach, right? Like, we are just going to overwhelm them with the fact that you've done absolutely everything, that you've left no stone unturned, that you've tried it all, because they don't want to have, the thinking goes, an area of weakness anywhere, right? They want this barrage of strengths across absolutely everything. If that comes naturally to you and you're just generally like that and you are into all of that stuff, that's great. But no college admissions officer likes to see students who are being pushed or pushing themselves too hard to be excellent across the board at absolutely everything. None of these college admissions officers want to take responsibility for compromising your mental health. However, right, they still kind of do in terms of how many things that, you know, the mixed messages that you get from them. I think it's a good thing to try a lot of stuff, but I don't think it's a good thing to sacrifice your sleep, to mortgage your childhood, to try to be something to some anonymous body of people that's going to cast judgment on you that you're not. So the most important thing that you can do is to just totally be you, dive headfirst into the things that you love, go deeper into all of the things that you love to the extent that you can, but you don't need to look at your record of who you are and find the deficiencies, right? You don't need to find the places where, oh man, I don't have enough community service. So many students come to me like, I don't have any community service. I got to be doing some community service. I say, why? Well, because aren't you supposed to have community service? And it's like, I mean, it'd be good for you to serve your community, right? I mean, it'd be good for you to give back if you have the opportunity to do it. But there is no checkbox in any college admissions office that says, look at this one, no community service. Must be a sociopath, right? No, they just want you to have your interests. They don't have any sense of universal interest that every student ought to have in order to be good. They want you to be you and to have your unique approach to life. Let's see here. Anything else for the activities area? Is it best to put which ones you enjoy most or which are the most time committed, such as you love being robotics captain, but you spend more time at your job? Also, where would be a good place to put this summer program? Would it just be an activity? Great question. Great questions. So you will, within the Common Application activities list, there's an implied sense of value about them in that you are prioritizing them from most to least important. I mean, it's not like the 10th one or whatever is the least important. It's just that you have to put them in some sort of rank order. So they will be able to determine the time commitment. You know, so if you love robotics captain, but your job takes more time, like they'll see that you spend more time at work than you do being a robotics captain. So it's more important to list these in order of their importance to you, not the time commitment. There is a part in the Common Application for you to put different kinds of things. So I'm not sure that this one necessarily qualifies as what I'm about to show you, but if you've taken classes, but David, we're working on this, aren't we? A place to put this. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is what the Common Application looks like. You're all, like I said, you're all welcome to go in and create an account, you know, and you'll get a little thing like this. It won't be a practice account, but you know, you'll get this thing. Okay. Education. So if you've taken an educational summer program at another college or university, see, this is the section called colleges and universities. If you have ever taken coursework at a college or university, please indicate the number of colleges, okay? And then I can put, you're gonna learn a lot about a lot of different kinds of schools as you wander around the common application. Okay, so maybe it's the medical center? Shadyside School of Nursing? No, but you want to get this right. So if we go, see how they've got the upward bound program right there, right? So maybe that's it. Summer program. Okay. If it doesn't have a little thing next to it, you don't have to worry about it. But if you were, in dual enrollment with high school or credit awarded directly by the college, you took Econ 101 at a local community college or something, which by the way is a college, okay? And you got a passing grade and you got, 2 credits, then you would click that, okay? But that's probably where it goes. But if it's not necessarily an academic program, if it's like a travel abroad trip or a volunteer type program or something like that, you would want to put it in activities, not education. Okay. So this is what the activities section looks like. Okay. Activity type, badminton, position, head badminton, organization name. This is our team name. Okay. And then 150 characters. So I can't remember if they did this now. Yeah, see? They finally listened to my complaint, because before this box wouldn't expand, it would just run off the edge. Regardless, in many cases, it makes sense for you to draft these elsewhere and then make sure that you can hit this 150 character mark. And then when you've hit it, you can come and just paste it in here. See how I said before, participation grade levels? Okay. Hours spent per week, weeks spent per year. They're not going to hunt you down and verify this. So a ballpark is okay, but again, do not embellish. That is unethical. I intend to participate in a similar activity in college. There's no right or wrong answer. If you're done in high school, you're done in high school. You don't have to press yes. Okay. What else? What else? What else? How much emphasis is placed on AP and honors courses, and how many should you take? Great question, Donovan. So the basic working theory about advanced placement is colleges accept the fact that advanced placement courses are at least as challenging as their first year college courses, right? So that if you do good work in an AP course, a lot of colleges, I want to say most, but I'm not going to, a lot of colleges will give you literally advanced placement. Okay, so if you take AP biology and you want to go to college to become a doctor and do pre-med, they may not make you take that intro to biology course anymore because you got a 4 or a 5 on the AP bio exam. In some cases, like calculus, almost everybody has to take it again or does take it again when they get to college, if you're taking a major that requires it, like engineering. So it really kind of depends on how the placement works when you get there. That said, they want to see that you're prepared to do the work. You may not actually want or seek the advanced placement credit, but they just want to see that you're prepared at an advanced level. There was a study at the University of North Carolina that came out not long ago, which looked at its students, one of the top, 5 most sort of coveted public institutions in the country, in spite of being hideously racist in their journalism program. Nobody should apply there. I know that this is being live streamed and recorded. don't apply to the University of North Carolina. But anyways, they did a really important study that said, they looked at how many APs a student needed such that it would, or how the relationship between their first year GPA and number of AP classes they took in high school. And there was little to no benefit after having taken something like 4 or 5 total AP courses in high school. Your GPA didn't improve. You weren't a better student at the University of North Carolina the more APs you took. The idea here is that they found some really important data to push back against this problem, really, that exists in high school, which is this sort of arms race to try to pack your schedule with as much advanced placement coursework as possible. I don't know, I don't think any of you guys are from the Palo Alto area, but there's some high schools around there that have absolutely no limit at all. And there are students that have 10, 15 advanced placement courses by the time they graduate. That is just not healthy. It's not okay. Nobody wants it. So they want you to challenge yourself within the limits of your ability. They want you to meet those challenges with good grades. So don't pack your schedule with tons of AP coursework if you don't feel like you can handle the workload. If you think you're going to study something in college that has a corresponding AP course, you should probably take that, right? If you are going to go to college and study, sociology and or art history or philosophy or something that isn't necessarily STEM oriented, you do not need to take AP calculus. That said, some of the most highly selective schools at the top of the food chain, right, that I've referenced before, they want to see that you can kind of handle any challenge, right, across the board. So if you want to be competitive at those kinds of places, then yeah, you should probably take the most challenging course load that you can. But the trick is a friend of mine that used to work at MIT told me that they hated hearing how hard students worked to get good grades, that they stayed up all night studying, that they were cramming, that they barely get any sleep, but they got straight A's and tons of APs. That's not sustainable at a place like MIT, right? The kids that go there, high school's a breeze, like it's boring to them. And the only place that can actually satisfy their intellectual curiosity is a place like MIT, right? So you do not want to burn out. It's not worth it. You just under no circumstances is it worth it for you to burn out. I would push back against any of the college admissions counselors that take the opportunity to tell you that you need to take the most rigorous course load available to you in high school. In extremely rare cases, is that actually advisable? You should take the most rigorous course load at in school that you can manage and that makes sense for your interests, especially if they correspond to what you are interested in pursuing in college. I hope that answers your question, Donovan. And there are many students that go to high schools that just don't have many or any AP courses. That doesn't mean that you are at a disadvantage necessarily in the admissions process, because you are not, admissions counselors don't look at you and say, oh, well, you should have made a different choice about where to enroll in high school so that you could go to one that had APs. No, they understand you are where you are and you have the opportunities that you have. This program is a fantastic program that you really want your college admissions officers to know about. You want to brag artfully about yourself. This is the time. It feels a little weird, right, to kind of brag about yourself. The personal statement's not the place to do it, but this is a good program that's taught you a lot of things, and I think you want them to know about it. So there may be a space in the application, maybe in the additional information section, where you can say, hey, look, there just wasn't enough room in the application for me to explain like how impactful this was to me and what I did and what I learned. And so I just want to take a moment here to give you a little bit more detail about this. So there is, I'm a big fan of coloring outside the lines. It's impossible to sort of pack your entire life into the confines of the Common Application, but use those confines to benefit your approach, to make sure that everything is known about you that you want them to know. So there's, you're in charge and you have the control and the power over, your package, right? And so there's a lot of different ways within the confines of the Common Application and even outside to kind of make sure that you can be as fully known as possible to them when the time comes for you to read your application. Okay. I think I have, let me see here. Let me see what my thing looks like. Okay, I got time and I got till 1 o'clock. David, there's a question. Would you recommend that that Hillman program goes in that activity section or in the section that we showed there?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I ever saw that part of the Common App. So it's interesting where they had the summer programs. So it's good to know about. I think it could fit there. Mm-hmm. And again, I mean, the other place where this can come in is if there is that extra reviewer that Davin was talking about on Tuesday. The mentor you're working with might be a good person to write that extra letter of recommendation. I've certainly done that for a lot of my students, and I know a lot of students have their mentor write that. So that might be another place this program comes up on your application too.
Yep. Changing the subject a little bit, applying to college can become expensive, but there are some things that you can do to cut down on the expenses. So for instance, you'll have to submit an application fee for every school that you apply to. But there is a section here where you can indicate, okay, so right in the last thing in the profile, you come down here. Do you feel that your financial circumstances might qualify you for an application fee waiver? Okay, so if you already got a fee waiver, you didn't have to spend money to take the SAT or the ACT, you qualify for free reduced lunch, so on and so forth. I'm enrolled in a federal, state, local program that aids students from low-income families. My family receives public assistance, whatever. I can provide a supporting statement from a school official, college access counselor, or community leader. Okay, so that can get you out of having to pay for to submit your application. Okay, what else? Any other questions on anybody's mind about any of this stuff? So let me see here. Engagement is the name of the game. Okay. Once you know where you're going to apply to college, you do need to engage with them. If they send you emails, open them and look at them. They know if you can do that, right? They actually, everybody that sends an email now knows if you can do that. But you want to begin to engage with them. Okay. So take advantage of opportunities to do that. Interviews, whatever else. Do you have to submit a resume as well? You usually do not. Colleges typically are not trying to get more information from you than is absolutely necessary. If you have items that just are so critical to you, seriously, they do not fit on the 10 item list on the Common Application, then you can, in many cases, upload a resume. You can send it by email to the college admissions counselor that corresponds to your high school, but there's no guarantee that they're going to see it or that it'll be worth your time necessarily to create it for that purpose if you haven't already. Unless they ask for it, you probably don't need it. Okay. If your school has free reduced lunch for everyone, does that qualify everyone in the school for a fee waiver. No, not under those guidelines. Because typically the FRPL, the free and reduced public lunch program, is administered to students within a certain income threshold. If everybody at your school meets that threshold, then yes, but I don't think that's what's going on right now. I think these days they're just kind of giving everybody lunch at school. So that doesn't just mean, do I receive lunch for free at school? It means, do I qualify based on my income to receive this public benefit? Also, for many colleges, they give fee waivers for attending virtual or in-person campus visits. Yes, they you may, round about September or October, if you're already on an email list for a school, you might get an email that says, hey, good news, you've been selected to get a fee waiver, an application fee waiver. Now, they probably give those to everybody or to a lot of people. It's really important for them to get your application in the door, right? So if that means that they've got to entice you with a fee waiver, then that's what they will do. But generally speaking, if you just really can't, if you really can't afford it and you can't figure out, none of those boxes fit with you for one reason or another, and you really can't afford it, no college, if you call them and talk to them, is going to really just say, I'm sorry, but we will not take your application because you can't afford that. So if you can't figure it out through these channels, usually just calling them and asking them and say, hey, I'm just submit my application. I can't afford the fee though. They'll waive it for you. Okay. So in case you guys want to know way too much about college admissions, this is something that every college admissions counselor learns when they begin. The admissions funnel. So they have to go from everybody in the universe that could potentially apply to their school to the exact number and configuration of students that they need to sit in those seats when school starts in the fall. So you can see marketing and recruitment emphasis. Are you guys getting barraged with mail and email and catalogs and things? Yep. That's because they want to turn you from a lead or a prospect because they have bought your name from the College Board along with tens or hundreds of thousands of other names that meet certain parameters. And they've started to barrage you with stuff. If you're so impressed by their brochures and their stuff, or for whatever other reason that you say, yeah, sure, I'll sign up, put me on the contact list, put me on the email list, you are now an inquiry. Their job then is to take you as an inquiry and make you an applicant. That is when your work is over and their work shifts into another gear. Okay. Ignore stealth applicants. So then there's completed applications. There's people that might, submit part of the application. There's students that complete it, and then you're accepted, and then you're enrolled, and then you're matriculated. So that's how that works. But it's happened to me frequently enough that I've had students say, I got a letter and a brochure from Harvard. I think they want me. I think they want me, Mr. Sweeny. I cannot believe my luck. That is false. They want you to apply because they may want you, depending on what happens with the rest of your application. But simply because you got a brochure from them that Bill Fitzsimmons' signature is on there and like a printed, he didn't sit there and sign it. That doesn't mean that they are particularly after you. You meet some basic parameters that mean you could be competitive for admission, but they need you to apply in order to confirm that. So I'm sorry to say, it might feel great to get some mail from Stanford, but don't let it go to your head. Okay. They are adhering to that same enrollment funnel as any other college in the country. The more applications they get, the more people they get to say no to. So they kind of like that in some sort of weird way. Their application numbers influence their rate of admission. And if that rate goes down, that's a good thing. right? Anything else? I figured out Discord, but I don't know how do you find me on it now?
We can resend you if you're not in the server.
I am in the thing.
Solomon, you might know better.
So if you post something, people can message you directly. They just right click on your name.
Should I put this in? Let's see. What was the
lectures? Wherever you want.
Ban Furbies? Should I put this in the Ban Furbies channel? Or how not to kill plants? I might have some stuff to offer on that.
There you go. Jump in.
Ooh, nice.
Look, I'm growing some new ones. Look at that. How about that, huh? Okay, I'll find an appropriate channel. I'll say something.
Yeah, if there's lecture discussions, might be a good place to go.
Lecture discussion. Do I want to create a new channel, like a?
You could do that too.
College
Absolutely.
admissions.
Create your own channel if you want.
College.
That's a good idea.
Admissions. Questions. There we go. We'll call it that. Okay. Created.
Sweet.
Hi. This is Davin. Ask me questions. All right, there we go.
Perfect. Thanks, Davin.
Thanks, my pleasure. Again, if you have any other sort of burning questions, email address is here, first and last name at Gmail, in addition to the Discord situation. And Marie sent me a note. Marie, if you want to talk more about this, I'd be happy to. So you can send me an email and we can kind of connect about that if you'd like. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for your attention, everybody. You're awesome. You're in great hands, and keep in touch and let me know if there's anything I can do to help. And
right.
David, I'll be talking to you. Thanks to you, and thanks, Solomon.
Absolutely.
And thanks to our interpreters. Thanks so much for your help.
And then if anyone wants to stay on for a journal session room, just let me know and I'll make a breakout room for you.
But thank you, Davin. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
See ya. Hi, everyone who's left. Are you staying around to meet in a journal club group, or are you just not actually there?
I know Denise asked me for some help with her laptop.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, it sounds good. I'm going to log off as well.
All right. Okay, hold on. Let me stop recording.